All right, welcome in everybody to the deep dive. We're taking a look at something a little different today, and well, it's all about this travel app that has been getting some serious love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we found this blog post titled, Why I Love the GuideAlong App Wanderlust Over 70, and it's from a blog called, you guessed it, Wanderlust Over 70.
Makes sense. Sounds like a pretty personal take.
It is. And you know what? I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like this isn't some sterile, professional review. It's just one traveler, Roberta Hill, talking about like how this app has seriously upped her travel game.
Yeah, love that. You always get the best insights from someone who's actually using the product out there in the real world,
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today. A deep dive into why Roberta is so into GuideAlong, trying to figure out what makes this thing tick. Especially for those road trips, man. Is this something that could actually change the way we experience, hitting the open road?
I'm all for a smoother, more informed road trip.
Me too. So right from the get-go, Roberta lays out six main reasons why she's all about this app.
6 reasons. She must be pretty impressed. What jumped out at you from the start?
Well, she kicks it off with a simple, it's Canadian, which for her, obviously adds a little something special.
Yeah, a little hometown pride.
Totally. But then, boom, she's gushing about the narrator. And I quote, how he seems to know each spot personally, and then in parentheses, which of course he doesn't.
Right, a little wink to the fact that it's just, good narration.
Exactly. But that right there is what caught my eye. It's like, effective travel guidance can't just be dry facts, right? You got to make it engaging, entertaining even, to really hit home.
Oh, for sure. That ability to, create that sense of connection, make you feel like you're right there with someone who knows the place inside and out, even if it's your first time. That's the power of good storytelling.
Absolutely. She also mentions that the selection of tours is limited, but they've been perfect for our trips.
So it's a curated collection, not overwhelming, but hits the sweet spot for her needs.
Exactly. And this little gem here, she says the app is thorough, educational, and humorous.
Okay, that's a winning combo right there.
Oh, tell me about it. Imagine that on the road. Solid info, some laughs along the way. Perfect. And to round it all off, ease of use, user-friendly and fantastic value.
Thorough, educational, and humorous.
Mm-hmm.
They've set a pretty high bar for themselves. It sounds like they're going beyond just pointing out landmarks, right? Providing real depth, but in a way that's fun and accessible. And yeah, the value proposition is always key for travelers.
Always. So for those of us who might be hearing about this for the first time, what exactly is this GuideAlong app that Roberta's raving about?
Well, as Roberta mentions, it used to be called Gypsy Guide, which, gives you a little hint.
Okay.
It's basically a GPS-based audio tour app, specifically designed for road trips and exploring all those beautiful scenic routes. So using GPS technology, it delivers location-aware commentary, like having a local expert riding shotgun, but digital,
Okay, I'm getting it. So as you're driving, it just automatically starts telling you about the stuff you're passing.
You got it. And here's the kicker. It gives you all that commentary, insider tips, historical background, without needing to be constantly connected to the internet or Wi-Fi.
So after that initial download, you're good to go.
You're golden, which is a godsend, especially if you've ever been in those, beautiful but remote areas with zero signal.
Oh, I feel that. National parks, winding mountain roads.
Yeah.
Your phone's basically a brick.
Exactly. Offline functionality can be a lifesaver.
Huge plus. So the whole idea is to give people a more immersive, more informative experience as they're actually driving.
You nailed it. Enriching the journey itself, not just the destination. And that's where the GPS-triggered content is crucial. The commentary is synced to your location, so you're hearing about what we're seeing right at that moment. No more fumbling with maps or, trying to find the right audio track.
I like the sound of that. So how did this whole GuideAlong thing even get started? Roberta's blog post actually gives us some cool backstory.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting origin story. The founder, Rick Bulich, is a Canadian entrepreneur, loves to travel, based in Canmore, Alberta, which explains Roberta's shout-out to its Canadian roots.
That's right. And it started out focusing on Canadian destinations, like the Rockies.
Yeah, and then it branched out. Roberta mentions Yellowstone, Yosemite, the Grand Canyon as some of the early U.S. additions.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got to be more than just Canada, right?
Oh, it definitely expanded its horizons and its growth. Well, it seems like good old-fashioned word of mouth played a big role. People were loving the user-friendly design, the quality of the narration, and of course that offline functionality. It was filling a real need for travelers who wanted something more than just a static guidebook.
And what about that rebrand to GuideAlong in 2021? What was the thinking there?
From what I gathered from Roberta's post, they wanted the name to really reflect what the app does best, guiding travelers. It also went hand in hand with some updates to the interface, making it even smoother and easier to use. Plus, they added a bunch of new tours, which shows they're not just resting on their laurels, they're constantly expanding and improving.
Solid foundation, clear mission. Okay, so back to Roberta and why she's such a fan. She breaks down several key strengths that really resonated with her.
Yeah, let's dig into that. She really highlights those engaging and informative audio tours. The professional narration, often with a touch of humor, that's a big draw. And remember, she specifically mentioned enjoying the corny humor.
Which means even more relatable, right?
Totally. Makes it feel more personal, like a friend is telling you stories. Right. And the narrator doesn't just stick to one thing either. They cover history, geology, wildlife, local culture, so there's always something to pique your interest no matter what you're into.
Keeps it fresh.
And then there's the range of destinations. Right now, they've got over 30 destinations covered. We're talking major national parks, iconic drives like the Road to Hana in Maui. Roberta mentions that she originally bought tours for about half of their destinations, but now she's down to only needing a third because they've added so many.
Wow, that's impressive growth.
It is. And it kind of suggests that if you find the app useful for one trip, chances are it'll be a good companion for future adventures, too.
For sure. Okay, and that GPS-triggered content is a game changer. No more needing to check your map every 2 seconds or manually start audio clips. The commentary just starts automatically based on where you are.
Super convenient, especially for drivers. Keeps your eyes on the road while still soaking up all that info.
And let's not forget about the offline functionality, which, as we discussed, is essential for those dead zones.
Absolutely crucial. Download before you go. No need to stress about finding Wi-Fi. Can you imagine any of your own travels where something like that would have saved you some hassle?
Oh, absolutely. No more frantic searches for a coffee shop with internet just to figure out what you're looking at.
Been there.
Roberta also gives a shout out to the user-friendly interface. It needs to be easy to navigate, download tours, start them up, no fuss. Sounds like they've nailed that aspect.
Totally agree. An app like this has to be intuitive, especially for travelers who might not be tech wizards. You want the technology to fade into the background so you can just enjoy the experience.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about that cost-effective alternative point. Roberta's a big fan of the one-time purchase model. You buy individual tours or bundles, and she finds it way more affordable than traditional guided tours, especially for those who prefer driving themselves.
And she specifically mentions those bundles being a great value. They usually group together tours for a whole park or a series of scenic drives.
Makes sense. You're basically paying once for hours of content that you can use over and over again.
And that can feel more valuable for travelers, even if you're only hitting the road a couple of times a year. Especially compared to repeatedly paying for guided tours every time you travel.
Right. It all adds up. And finally, that flexibility and independence it provides. You're not stuck to someone else's schedule. You can stop whenever you want, detour, explore at your own pace.
That's the beauty of it. Combines the depth of a guided experience with the freedom to do your own thing.
So, sounds pretty amazing, right? But to be fair, Roberta does mention a few minor downsides.
Yeah, gotta keep it real. First up, limited coverage. As much as they're expanding, they don't have every destination under the sun covered yet, especially those lesser-known spots or international destinations.
Well, they can't be everywhere at once, right? Starting with the popular routes and parks makes sense.
Totally. But like Roberta said, they are growing, so it's a matter of time.
For sure. Now, second point, the one-time purchase model. While Roberta loves it, she acknowledges that for someone going to just one place, the cost of a single tour might feel a bit steep compared to, say, a subscription service, even though she still feels the value is there.
Yeah, it really comes down to individual travel style, doesn't it? If you're a hardcore road tripper, those one-time purchases are gonna save you money in the long run.
Big time. Okay, next. No real-time interaction. Yeah, obviously can't ask questions of a live guide.
Right, a little less personal in that sense, although Roberta does point out that the narrator's so engaging that it almost feels interactive.
Yeah, but it's tough to beat that real-time back and forth, isn't it?
True. And then there's the dependence on GPS, which, well, let's be honest, can be a bit iffy in some areas.
Yeah, she hasn't had any problems, but she acknowledges that it's something to keep in mind, especially if you're going off the grid.
especially in those remote areas.
Yeah.
Now, to give us a better picture, Roberta actually shares some specific examples of how she's used GuideAlong.
Yeah, she mentioned some pretty epic places. The Mighty Five National Parks, the road to Hana, Maui, a perfect day trip in Vermont, and exploring what makes Key West a great place to visit.
Wow, that's quite the range. It really shows how adaptable the app is. You can use it for those grand national park adventures or just a quick day trip.
Totally. And this is cool.
Yeah.
She drops a little tidbit about the voice behind the app.
Oh, yeah. Fill me in.
All right, so the narrator, it's Dave Pettitt, a Canadian voice actor. You might recognize his voice from shows like Highway Through Hell and Heavy Rescue 401.
Okay, no wonder the narration is so good.
Exactly. And get this, he even has his own studio in Nanaimo, British Columbia.
That's awesome.
It is. And it makes so much sense now why Roberta feels that connection to the narration. It's not just someone reading a script. It's a seasoned storyteller bringing these places to life.
A very deliberate choice, and it clearly pays off. Makes the whole experience so much more immersive.
So, as we've been going through all this, what are your thoughts? Could an app like GuideAlong be a good fit for your travels?
You know, I think that combo of detailed information delivered in such a fun, engaging way, along with the convenience of GPS triggering and offline access, it's a really compelling package, especially for those of us who are all about road trips. It's like a way to deepen your experience, learn more about the places you're passing through. I mean, can you think of any trips you've got coming up where this could come in handy?
It really does seem like it adds another layer to the whole experience.
Yeah.
Imagine getting those insights and stories without being tied to a tour group or, having to shell out for a personal guide. And the fact that Roberta, who's clearly an experienced traveler, finds it so valuable, that speaks volumes.
It really does. The big takeaway here is that GuideAlong blends education and entertainment. It's not just about getting from point A to point B. It's about turning that drive into an adventure.
Love that. So to wrap up our deep dive into GuideAlong, as seen through Roberta's eyes, it's this GPS-powered audio tour app that's all about making road trips more fun and informative. People are praising it for the engaging narration, the comprehensive information, the offline functionality, the easy-to-use interface, and of course, the value for your money, especially with those bundle options.
Yeah, the destination coverage is still growing, and it's a one-time purchase, not a subscription, but for a lot of travelers, especially those who love exploring at their own pace, this could be a game changer.
Absolutely. If you're the kind of traveler who wants to get the most out of those scenic drives, who's curious about the history and stories behind the places you're passing through, then this is definitely worth checking out. And here's our final thought for you. Think about your upcoming trips, or even those dream road trips you've always wanted to take. Could having a knowledgeable virtual guide enhance those experiences? Would it make those journeys more meaningful, more memorable? And then ask yourself, does the idea of paying once for travel content that you can use over and over again work for you? Maybe take a peek at the GuideAlong app, see what destinations they've got. Who knows? Your next adventure might be waiting to be discovered.
Definitely food for thought.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.